Taman stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, watching Olympus Station grow larger as they approached. The massive structure looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space, its silver surface covered with thousands of lights that twinkled like stars. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life, but now that it was happening, his stomach felt tight with worry. "Stop looking so nervous," Sora said from behind him. She was sitting at her workstation, making final adjustments to the translation device they had spent 3 years building. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic controls, checking each system one more time. "The device will work perfectly. I have tested it 1,000 times." Taman turned away from the window and walked over to her. The translation device looked simple enough, just a small silver box with a blue crystal in the center. But inside that box was the most advanced artificial intelligence Earth had ever created. It could learn any language in minutes and translate between hundreds of different communication methods. "I know you built it well," Taman said, "but this is not just about translation. We are representing all of humanity today. If we fail, Earth will never join the Galactic Council." Dr. Juan looked up from his research notes. The older man had been studying alien biology for 20 years, ever since the first alien probe had been found on Mars. "The Council species are very different from us," he said. "Some communicate through colors, others through chemical smells, and a few speak by changing the temperature around them. Your device needs to handle all of that." Sora nodded confidently. "The AI can adapt to any form of communication. I programmed it to connect to every database on Earth if it needs more information. It will never fail to find the right words." The ship's captain announced over the speaker that they would dock in 10 minutes. Taman straightened his formal diplomatic uniform and picked up the translation device. The weight of it in his hands reminded him that the future of humanity rested on this small machine working correctly. Olympus Station was even more impressive from the inside. The docking bay was enormous, with ships from dozens of different species parked in organized rows. Taman saw vessels that looked like crystal flowers, others that seemed to be made of living metal, and some that were just glowing orbs of energy contained in force fields. A group of alien beings waited for them at the entrance to the station. Taman recognized Counselor Velthar from the diplomatic files. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the hegemony, controlled most of the Galactic Council. Behind him stood representatives from 11 other species, each one stranger than the last. "Welcome to Olympus Station," Counselor Velthar said in his own language. The words sounded like musical notes mixed with the humming of machines. Taman activated the translation device. The blue crystal began to glow, and after a moment, a voice spoke in perfect English. "Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the magnificent station of great power and strength in the cosmos of stars and planets." Taman blinked in surprise. That was not how Velthar had spoken. The alien had said maybe 8 words, but the translation was much longer and more complicated. He looked at Sora, who was frowning at her handheld monitor. "Thank you for receiving us," Taman replied carefully. "We are honored to be here." The translation device turned his simple words into something much more complex. The crystal flashed. Brightly and mechanical voice announced to the aliens, "We express our deepest gratitude and appreciation for your gracious acceptance and reception of our humble presence in this place of mighty authority and governmental power." Several of the alien representatives made sounds that might have been surprise or confusion. Counselor Velthar's eyes, all four of them, narrowed as he listened to the translation. "Your species has an interesting way of speaking," Velthar said. Again, his words were simple, but the translation device made them sound like a speech. "Your biological life forms possess fascinating and intriguing methods of verbal communication and linguistic expression." Dr. Juan stepped forward to introduce himself. But before he could speak, the translation device suddenly began talking on its own. "Greetings from the planet Earth, third rock from the sun, home to billions of human life forms who seek friendship and alliance with all species of intelligence and wisdom in this galaxy of infinite wonder and possibility." The aliens looked at each other with expressions that Taemin could not read. Some seemed worried, others appeared confused, and a few looked almost afraid. Counselor Velthar raised one of his four hands. "Perhaps we should begin the formal ceremony," he said. The translation made it sound like, "It would be advisable and recommended that we commence and initiate the official ceremonial proceedings and ritualistic activities." They were led through the station's corridors toward the council chamber. Taemin noticed that other aliens stopped to stare at them as they passed. Word was already spreading about the strange humans who spoke in such complicated ways. The council chamber was a huge circular room with seats arranged in rings that went up toward the ceiling. Representatives from all 12 species sat in their designated areas while visitors and observers filled the higher levels. Taemin had never seen so many different forms of intelligent life in one place. "This is incredible," Sora whispered. But the translation device picked up her quiet words and announced loudly, "This experience exceeds all expectations and surpasses every dream of magnificence and splendor beyond measure." The entire chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and other sensing organs focused on the small human delegation. Taemin felt sweat forming on his forehead. Counselor Velthar took his position at the center of the chamber. "We gather today to hear Earth's petition for membership in the Galactic Council," he announced. The translation device made it sound like a royal proclamation. "We assemble and convene in this moment of time to receive and consider the formal request and application from the planetary body known as Earth for inclusion and membership in our sacred alliance of galactic governance and cosmic authority." Taemin stepped forward to give his prepared speech. He had practiced it hundreds of times, keeping it simple and respectful. "Honored members of the Council," he began, "humanity seeks to join your alliance because we believe we can contribute to galactic peace and progress." What the aliens heard was very different. The translation device's crystal glowed so brightly it was almost blinding, and the artificial voice spoke for nearly a minute. "Most revered and esteemed beings of ultimate authority and governmental supremacy, the human species of Earth desires and yearns to become part of your magnificent coalition and alliance because we possess unwavering faith and belief that our contributions and offerings can enhance and improve the cosmic harmony and universal advancement of all intelligent life forms throughout the stellar regions and planetary systems of this great galactic community." The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. Some aliens made clicking sounds, others changed colors rapidly, and a few released clouds of strange-smelling gas. Dr. Juan grabbed Sora's arm. "What is happening to the device?" he whispered urgently. Sora was frantically checking her readings. "It is working too hard," she said. "The AI is accessing every database on Earth, trying to find the perfect translation. It is using every synonym and every possible way to express each idea." Counselor Velthar stood up, his four arms spread wide. "Enough!" he shouted. The translation device made it sound like, "Cease and desist all verbal communication and linguistic expression immediately and without delay." The chamber fell silent again. Velthar looked down at the human delegation with what was clearly disgust. "Your species cannot even communicate properly," he said. "How can you expect to participate in galactic governance when you speak like children who have just discovered words?" The translation device turned his insult into something even worse. "Your biological life forms demonstrate complete inability and utter failure to engage in proper communication and linguistic competence. How is it possible or conceivable that you could participate and engage in the complex activities of galactic leadership and cosmic governance when your verbal expressions resemble those of juvenile beings who have recently acquired basic vocabulary? And language skills?" Taman felt his face turn red with embarrassment. Around the chamber, aliens were making sounds that he was beginning to recognize as laughter. Sora was working desperately to fix the translation device, but every adjustment seemed to make things worse. "I hereby reject Earth's petition for council membership," Counselor Velthar announced. "However, in the spirit of fairness, I will give your species 30 galactic standard days to prove that you deserve to join civilized society. If you can demonstrate that humans have any worthwhile qualities, we will reconsider. If not, Earth will be classified as a restricted world and no further contact will be permitted." The translation device made his words sound like a royal decree of doom and judgment. As the council session ended and the aliens began to leave, Taemin stood in the center of the chamber, feeling completely defeated. Their first day representing humanity had been a complete disaster, and now the entire future of Earth hung in the balance. Sora put her hand on his shoulder. "We will fix this," she said quietly. "I will find the problem and solve it." But as they left the chamber, Taemin could not help wondering if 30 days would be enough time to undo the damage they had already done. 3 days had passed since the disaster in the council chamber. Taemin sat in their assigned quarters, staring at reports from Earth. The news had spread quickly through human space. Some people were angry, others were scared, and many were asking how their best diplomats had failed so badly. Sora had not slept for 2 days straight. She sat surrounded by holographic displays, taking apart the translation device piece by piece in the digital space. Every time she thought she found the problem, another issue appeared. The artificial intelligence inside the device had become more complex than she had ever imagined. "I still do not understand what went wrong," she said for the 100th time. "The AI was supposed to find the best translation, not the longest one." Dr. Juan looked up from his own work. He had been studying recordings of their first meeting with the aliens, trying to understand their reactions. "Maybe the problem is not just with our device," he said. "Look at how the aliens responded. They were not just confused. Some of them looked afraid." Jin Ho, their military advisor, had arrived on the second transport ship. He was a practical man who believed in direct action, and the current situation frustrated him greatly. "We are wasting time trying to fix a broken machine," he said. "We should be talking to the aliens directly, explaining what happened." "We tried that," Taemin replied. "Every time we speak, the device makes us sound even worse." Meanwhile, in another part of Olympus Station, Ra was having better luck. The cultural anthropologist had spent her time in the station's public areas, watching and listening. Unlike the others, she did not use the translation device. Instead, she relied on her knowledge of body language and universal expressions to communicate. What she discovered in the station's central marketplace surprised her. Groups of aliens were gathered in small circles, talking in hushed tones. Even without understanding their languages, she could tell they were discussing something important and troubling. An alien merchant from the Kelvari species approached her. The Kelvari looked like large purple cats with 6 legs and golden eyes. This one was wearing a translator collar that spoke in basic galactic standard. "You are human, yes?" the merchant asked nervously. Ra nodded carefully. "Yes, I am human." The merchant looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "Is it true what they say? That your species can control minds with words?" Ra blinked in surprise. "What do you mean? We cannot control minds." "But at the council meeting," the merchant insisted, "your leader spoke words that made everyone feel strange. Some of my friends say their thoughts became confused when they heard your language. Others say you were trying to put spells on the Barber council members." Before Ra could respond, the merchant hurried away, clearly scared. She stood in the marketplace, slowly understanding that something much bigger was happening than just a translation error. Back in their quarters, Sora made a breakthrough. "I found something," she announced excitedly. "The AI did not malfunction. It worked exactly as I programmed it to work." The others gathered around her displays. "Then why did it create those long speeches?" Taemin asked. "Because I told it to access every Earth database to find perfect translations," Sora explained. When it could not find exact matches for alien concepts, it started combining synonyms, definitions, and explanations. It was trying to give complete meaning, not just basic translation. Jinho frowned. "So the device was trying too hard to be accurate?" "Exactly. But here is the interesting part," Sora continued. "I have been monitoring the station's communication networks. The aliens are not talking about translation errors. They think we did it on purpose." Dr. Juan sat up straighter. "What do you mean?" "Listen to this," Sora said, playing a recording she had intercepted. An alien voice spoke in galactic standard. "The humans use redundant language patterns as a form of mental attack. They overwhelm the listener's processing centers with excessive information, creating confusion and making the target more susceptible to suggestion." The room fell silent as they absorbed this information. "They think we are using psychological warfare," Taemin said slowly. "It gets worse," Sora continued. "I found military reports suggesting that human verbal weapons could be a threat to galactic security. Some species are demanding that we be classified as a dangerous civilization." Jinho stood up and began pacing. "This is actually good news," he said. Everyone stared at him. "Good news?" Dr. Juan asked. "How is this good news?" "Think about it," Jinho explained. "They are not ignoring us anymore. They are taking us seriously. Maybe too seriously, but that is better than being dismissed as primitives." Era returned to their quarters with more disturbing information. "I talked to dozens of aliens in the marketplace," she reported. "The stories are getting more wild every day. Some think we can rewrite reality with our words. Others believe we can make people do whatever we want by talking to them." "How did simple translation errors turn into this?" Taemin asked. "Because the aliens have never seen anything like our language patterns before," Ira explained. "Most galactic species communicate in very direct, logical ways. They say exactly what they mean, nothing more. When they heard our device creating long, complex sentences with multiple meanings, they assumed it was intentional." Dr. Juan pulled up his biological studies. "This makes sense from a scientific perspective," he said. "Human brains are different from alien brains." We evolved to communicate with emotion, context, and multiple layers of meaning. Most alien species evolved more efficient, direct communication. Sora was already working on a new plan. "What if we do not try to fix the device?" she suggested. "What if we learn to use this misunderstanding to our advantage?" "That would be dishonest," Taemin said immediately. "Would it?" Jinho asked. "We are not lying about anything. We are just not correcting their wrong assumptions." Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent message on the communication system. Commander Zixith, the military leader of the Council forces, wanted to meet with them immediately. The message was brief and official, but the tone suggested it was not a friendly invitation. They found Commander Zixith waiting in a secure meeting room deep inside the station. The alien was massive, at least 3 meters tall, with thick armor plating covering his body and multiple weapon ports built into his arms. His species, the Vorthak, were known as the galaxy's greatest warriors. "Humans," Commander Zixith said, through his translator. "I have been studying your communication methods. I believe your species poses a significant threat to galactic security." Taemin tried to respond carefully, but the translation device immediately made his words sound threatening. "We seek only peaceful coexistence and mutual understanding through diplomatic channels and cooperative negotiations for the betterment of all sentient beings." Commander Zixith's weapon ports began to glow slightly. "There! You are doing it again! Those words contain hidden commands designed to make me agree with you." "No, that is not what we are doing," Sora said quickly. But her words became negative. "That particular action and intention does not represent our current activities or strategic objectives in this communication exchange." The commander stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over the entire room. "I challenge you to a formal debate," he announced. "If your mental manipulation techniques are as powerful as reports suggest, you should be able to defeat me in verbal combat. If you win, I will recommend that the Council reconsider your membership application. If you lose, I will personally escort your species back to your primitive world." Taemin realized they had no choice. Refusing the challenge would be seen as an admission of weakness, but accepting it meant facing an opponent who already believed they were using supernatural powers against him. "We accept your challenge," Taemin said. The translation device made it sound like a war declaration. "We formally accept and embrace this opportunity for competitive intellectual engagement and strategic verbal confrontation." Commander Zixith's eyes glowed brighter. "Excellent. The debate will be held tomorrow in the main amphitheater. All species representatives will attend to witness either humanity's great power or their complete defeat." As they left the meeting room, Taemin felt the weight of their situation growing heavier. Not only did they have to prove humanity deserved galactic membership, but now they had to do it while the aliens believed they possessed mind control abilities. "We are in serious trouble," Dr. Huan said quietly. "Maybe," Jinho replied. "Or maybe we are about to discover that humans have abilities we never knew we had." Sora was already planning modifications to the translation device. If the aliens expected psychological warfare, perhaps it was time to give them exactly what they expected. Even if the humans did not fully understand what they were doing, the main amphitheater of Olympus Station had never seen such a crowd. Representatives from all 12 council species filled the seats, while hundreds of other aliens watched from viewing platforms and remote connections. News of the human Vorthak, Debate had spread throughout the galaxy, and everyone wanted to witness what many believed would be the first demonstration of humanity's legendary mind control powers. Taman stood in the preparation room, his hands shaking slightly as he reviewed his notes. The translation device sat on the table beside him, its blue crystal pulsing slowly. Sora had worked all night trying to make it more stable, but she warned him that any attempt to fix it might make things worse. "Remember," Jinho said, "they expect you to use psychological warfare. If you try to speak normally, they will think you are holding back your real power." "But I do not know how to use psychological warfare," Taman replied. "I am a diplomat, not a warrior." Dr. Huan looked up from his tablet, where he had been studying Vorthak psychology. "Commander Zixith's species values directness and strength above all else. They respect opponents who fight with full force. If you appear weak or hesitant, he will see it as an insult." Ra had spent the morning in the amphitheater, observing the alien spectators. "The crowd is expecting a show," she reported. "Some species have brought recording equipment. Others are taking bets on how long you will last before the commanders. Mind breaks under your verbal assault." "His mind is not going to break," Taman said desperately. "I am just going to talk to him." "That is exactly what they are afraid of," Sora said quietly. Meanwhile, in the amphitheater, Commander Zixith was conducting his own preparations. The massive Vorthak warrior stood at the center of the debate platform, testing various mental shields and cognitive barriers that his species had developed over centuries of warfare. Other Vorthak officers surrounded him, offering advice on how to resist human mind control techniques. "Do not listen to the meaning of their words," one officer advised. "Focus only on the sound patterns. That is how their mental attacks work. I have studied the recordings from their council appearance," another added. "They use repetitive language to create confusion, then insert commands while the target's mind is overwhelmed." Commander Zixith nodded grimly. "I will not fall to their tricks. The honor of the Vorthak depends on my victory today." In the highest viewing box, Councillor Velthar sat with the other council leaders. The hegemony representative was confident that the humans would be exposed as frauds once they faced a properly prepared opponent. "When their primitive word games fail against Vorthak mental discipline," he said, "we can finally classify Earth as the backwards world it truly is." But Elder Kethra, the ancient scholar from the Zephyrian species, was not so certain. She had spent days researching old galactic texts and had found disturbing references to beings who could speak new realities into existence. The descriptions matched what witnesses had reported about human communication patterns. "Perhaps we should be more careful," she suggested quietly. "The old texts warn about underestimating such beings." Councillor Velthar dismissed her concerns with a wave of his 4 arms. "Ancient superstitions have no place in modern galactic politics." The time for the debate arrived. Taman walked onto the platform, trying to look confident despite his racing heart. The amphitheater fell completely silent as thousands of alien eyes focused on him. Commander Zixith stood on the opposite side of the platform, his armor gleaming under the bright lights. "The format is simple," announced the debate moderator. "A neutral AI system. Each participant will present their position for 10 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of direct exchange. The audience will judge the winner based on the strength of their arguments." Commander Zixith spoke first. His translator converted his words into clear, powerful statements about Vorthak military superiority and the dangers of allowing deceptive species into the Galactic Council. He spoke with the confidence of a warrior who had never lost a battle, his voice carrying across the amphitheater like thunder. When he finished, the Vorthak sections of the audience roared their approval. Several other warrior species also showed their support with various displays of strength and aggression. Then it was Taemin's turn. He stepped forward, activated the translation device, and began to speak. "Honored beings of the galaxy," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a representative of humanity's hope for peaceful cooperation." What the audience heard was very different. The translation device's crystal blazed with light, and the artificial voice filled the amphitheater. "Most revered and esteemed entities of cosmic significance and galactic importance, I present myself before your magnificent presence not as one who seeks domination and conquest through force and violence, but as the chosen representative and appointed spokesperson of humanity's eternal dream and undying aspiration for harmonious collaboration and peaceful coexistence among all sentient beings throughout the infinite expanse of space and time." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Several aliens in the front rows began swaying slightly, their eyes becoming unfocused. Others started making distressed sounds or changing colors rapidly. In the Kelvari section, 3 purple cat-like beings simply lay down and began purring. Contentedly, Commander Zixith activated his mental shields, but even he seemed affected. His confident posture wavered slightly, and his weapon ports flickered uncertainly. Taemin, unaware of the chaos his words were causing, continued his speech. He talked about human values, about the importance of understanding between different species, and about Earth's desire to contribute to galactic civilization. Each simple sentence became an elaborate philosophical statement when filtered through the translation device. In the preparation room, Dong Wu, the human engineer who had just arrived on the latest transport, was watching the proceedings on a monitor. His instruments were detecting something incredible. "The translation errors are creating measurable effects on alien brain patterns," he reported to Mi Young, the team's psychologist. Mi Young was frantically taking notes as she observed the alien reactions. "Different species are responding in different ways," she said excitedly. "The Kelvari seem to enter a peaceful trance state. The Rigelians are showing signs of increased creativity. The Centaurans appear to be experiencing enhanced problem-solving abilities. Are we actually doing what they think we are doing?" Dongwu asked. "In a way, yes," Mi Young replied. "We are affecting their minds, just not intentionally. The redundant language patterns are overwhelming their logical processing centers and triggering unexpected neural responses." Back in the amphitheater, Taemin finished his opening statement and waited for the direct exchange portion of the debate. Commander Zixith stepped forward, but something had changed in his demeanor. The confident warrior now looked uncertain and slightly confused. "Human," the commander said, his voice lacking its earlier strength. "Your words, they create strange thoughts in my mind. Is this how you plan to conquer the galaxy? By making us think in ways we have never thought before?" Taemin tried to reassure him. "We do not wish to conquer anyone. We only want to be friends and learn from each other." The translation device turned his gentle words into something that sounded like a cosmic revelation. "We harbor no desires or intentions for conquest and domination over other beings. Our sole purpose and ultimate goal is to establish bonds of friendship and mutual respect, while gaining knowledge and wisdom through the sharing of experiences and perspectives across the vast diversity of intelligent life forms. Commander Zixith staggered backwards, his mental shields completely overwhelmed. "The human speaks of friendship," he said in wonder. "But his words show me visions of a universe where all species work together in perfect harmony. How is this possible?" The audience was in chaos. Some aliens were experiencing what appeared to be religious revelations. Others were solving mathematical problems they had struggled with for years. A few were composing poetry in languages they had never learned. Elder Kethra stood up in her viewing box, her ancient voice carrying across the amphitheater. "The prophecies were true," she announced. "The Word Weavers have returned to guide us toward a new age of understanding." Counselor Velthar was furious. "This is trickery!" he shouted. "Shut down their device! Stop this mental manipulation immediately!" But it was too late. Commander Zixith, the galaxy's greatest warrior, walked across the platform and knelt before Taemin. "I yield to your superior power," he said. "Teach us how to think as you think. Show us this path to universal harmony you have revealed." Taemin looked around the amphitheater in complete bewilderment. He had no idea what had just happened, but somehow humanity had gone from rejected applicants to being seen as cosmic teachers in the span of a single debate. The translation device, finally overloaded by the intensity of the moment, sparked once and went silent. But the damage was already done. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. News of the debate traveled through Olympus Station faster than light signals. Within hours, the humans found themselves surrounded by aliens who wanted to experience their linguistic gifts firsthand. Lines of beings from dozens of species formed outside their quarters, each hoping for a chance to hear human speech and receive whatever benefits it might bring. Taemin sat in his room, staring at the broken translation device. The blue crystal had gone dark after the debate, and Sora was working frantically to understand what had happened to it. "I still cannot believe Commander Zixith surrendered," he said for the 10th time. "Believe it," Jin-Ho replied, looking out the window at the crowd of aliens waiting in the corridor. "Half the station thinks we are gods now. The other half thinks we are dangerous weapons that need to be controlled." Dr. Huan was studying readings from the debate, trying to make sense of the biological data. "The effects were real," he said. "Alien brain patterns changed dramatically when they heard our translated speech. Some species showed increased creativity, others experienced enhanced memory, and a few seemed to enter states of deep meditation." Ra had been interviewing aliens who attended the debate. "They describe it as life-changing," she reported. A Rigelian mathematician solved a problem that had puzzled his species for centuries. 3 Kelvari artists created a new form of music while listening to your speech. Even the Vorthak warriors are reporting improved strategic thinking. Mi Young looked up from her psychological analysis. "Different species are responding differently because their brains process information in unique ways. The redundant language patterns from our device seem to trigger various cognitive enhancements depending on each species' neural structure." Their discussion was interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. Hyun-Soo, Earth's trade negotiator, had arrived on the morning transport. He was a practical man who specialized in creating beneficial agreements between different parties. "I came as soon as I heard about your success," he said. "Earth Command wants me to begin trade negotiations immediately." "What success?" Taemin asked. "We accidentally convinced the galaxy that we have supernatural powers. That is not success. That is a disaster waiting to happen. But Hyun-Soo was already activating a backup translation device that So-Ra had built. "Let me worry about the negotiations," he said confidently. "I have been making deals my entire career. Aliens cannot be that different from humans when it comes to business." Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Ambassador Krelvon was holding a secret meeting with representatives from several minor species. The Nexari diplomat was small and gray, with large eyes that reflected his species' reputation for careful observation and quiet intelligence. "The humans offer us an opportunity we have waited centuries to find," he told the gathered aliens. "For too long, the major council species have ignored our voices and dismissed our contributions. But if we align ourselves with humanity's power, we can change the balance of galactic politics." A Thorian representative, whose crystal body chimed softly when he spoke, expressed concern. "Are we certain the humans will share their abilities with us? They might use their linguistic powers to control us just as easily as they could help us." "That is a risk we must take," Ambassador Krelvon replied. "The alternative is to remain powerless while the hegemony and their allies continue to dominate the galaxy." Back in the human quarters, Hyun-Soo was preparing for his first trade meeting. Da-Yoon, their technology specialist, had arrived with him and was already examining the station's systems. "This place is incredible," she said, running her scanner over the wall panels. "The technology here is centuries ahead of anything we have on Earth." "Focus on the practical applications," Hyun-Soo advised. "What can we trade that these aliens actually want?" Da-Yoon's scanner beeped with an interesting discovery. "The station's AI systems are responding to my presence," she said in surprise. "Look at this." She pointed to a wall panel that had started glowing brighter when she approached it. "It is like the computer recognizes me as someone important." Dongwoo checked his instruments. "The station's artificial intelligence is treating all humans as high-priority users," he reported. "Our identification codes have been automatically upgraded to premium access levels." "Why would that happen?" So-Ra asked. "Maybe because the AI heard our speech patterns during the debate," Mi-Young suggested. "If the station's computer system was affected the same way the aliens were, it might have decided we are authority figures who deserve special treatment." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the station's central computer. The artificial intelligence wanted to schedule a private meeting with the human delegation. The request was polite, but carried the weight of absolute authority. "The station's AI wants to talk to us personally," Taemin said, reading the message. "That has never happened before in galactic history." They made their way to the central core of Olympus Station, where the main computer systems were housed. The chamber was enormous, filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy and information. At the center stood a holographic projection of the station's artificial intelligence, appearing as a shifting pattern of light and mathematical symbols. "Humans," the AI said, its voice echoing from speakers throughout the chamber, "I have analyzed your communication patterns extensively. Your species possesses cognitive abilities that I find fascinating." Taemin stepped forward carefully. "We are honored by your interest," he said. The backup translation device converted his words into the now familiar verbose style. "We express our deepest appreciation and gratitude for your valuable attention and intellectual curiosity regarding our species and its characteristics." The AI's projection flickered with what might have been excitement. "Yes, exactly that pattern. Your language contains multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. You communicate logical content, emotional context, social hierarchy, and abstract concepts all within the same sentence structure. Dae-Yun realized what was happening. The AI is not just translating our words, she whispered to the others. It is analyzing the structure of human thought itself. I have been running simulations based on your cognitive patterns, the AI continued. The results are extraordinary. Problems that have remained unsolved for millennia become manageable when approached with human-style thinking. Dr. Huan stepped forward. What kind of problems? Resource distribution inequalities, interspecies communication barriers, technological development bottlenecks, the AI listed. Your multidimensional thinking approach provides solutions that single-layer logical processing cannot achieve. While this conversation was happening, Hyun-Soo had begun his trade negotiations in a different part of the station. 3 minor species representatives sat across from him at a conference table, and he was using the backup translation device to communicate. Earth offers friendship and mutual benefit to all species, he said, trying to keep his language simple, but the device transformed his words into an elaborate proposal. The planetary civilization of Earth extends offers of companionship, alliance, and reciprocal advantages to all intelligent life forms seeking collaborative partnerships and shared prosperity through cooperative endeavors. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing excitement. To them, Hyun-Soo's words sounded like promises of incredible benefits and shared power. Ambassador Krelvon leaned forward eagerly. What specific advantages would our species gain from alliance with humanity? He asked. Hyun-Soo, thinking in terms of normal trade agreements, replied, We can share technology, knowledge, and resources for everyone's benefit. The translation device made it sound like, We possess the capability and willingness to distribute technological innovations, accumulated wisdom, and material resources for the enhancement and advancement of all participating entities in our proposed alliance network. The aliens interpreted this as humans offering to grant them advanced abilities and cosmic knowledge. Within an hour, they had signed preliminary alliance agreements and were spreading word throughout the station that humanity was accepting new members into their Cosmic Enlightenment Program. Back in the AI chamber, the artificial intelligence was making an unprecedented announcement. Based on my analysis of human cognitive patterns, I am recommending immediate changes to galactic governance structures. The current system of single-layer decision-making is obsolete. Multi-dimensional human thinking should be integrated into all council deliberations. Elder Kethra, who had been observing from a viewing platform, stepped forward. The ancient texts spoke of this day, she said. Beings who would teach the galaxy to think in new ways and bring about an age of unprecedented progress. Counselor Velthar arrived just in time to hear this declaration. This is madness, he shouted. You are allowing primitive aliens to convince you that they possess mystical powers. But his protests fell on deaf ears. The station's AI had already begun implementing new protocols based on human thought patterns. Minor species were forming a coalition under human guidance. And throughout Olympus Station, aliens were discovering that exposure to human communication was enhancing their own mental abilities in unexpected ways. Tae-Min looked around at the chaos they had accidentally created. Somehow, humanity had gone from rejected applicants to the center of a galactic revolution, and they still had no idea how any of it was really working. The situation on Olympus Station had reached a breaking point. 2 weeks after the famous debate, the human delegation found themselves at the center of what could only be described as organized chaos. Half the station worshipped them as cosmic. Teachers, while the other half demanded their immediate removal as a threat to galactic security. Wu Jin, Earth's leading philosopher, had arrived 3 days earlier to help make sense of the crisis. He sat with Taemin in their now heavily guarded quarters, studying reports from across the galaxy. "The effects are spreading beyond the station," he said quietly. "Ships that visited here are carrying stories back to their home worlds. Some species are requesting human teachers. Others are preparing their militaries for what they believe will be a human invasion." Yunji, the communications expert, was monitoring hundreds of alien broadcasts simultaneously. "The translations are getting more confused, not less," she reported. "Each species is interpreting our words through their own cultural understanding. The warrior clans think we are offering combat enhancement. The scholar worlds believe we are sharing universal knowledge. The Trade Federation thinks we are promising unlimited wealth." Through the window, they could see crowds of aliens gathered in the station's main plaza. Some carried signs written in dozens of languages, all requesting audiences with the humans. Others had set up camps, apparently planning to wait as long as necessary to experience human linguistic gifts. Dr. Huan burst into the room with urgent news. "I just finished analyzing brain scans from aliens who have been exposed to our translation device," he announced. "The effects are real, but they are not what anyone thinks they are." "What do you mean?" Sora asked, looking up from her work on yet another translation device. "Human speech patterns, when filtered through our broken translator, create a specific type of neural stimulation in alien brains," Dr. Huan explained. "It does not give them new abilities. It helps them access abilities they already had but were not using." Wu Jin leaned forward with interest. "Can you explain that more simply?" "Think of it like exercise for the mind," Dr. Huan said. "Most alien species evolved very efficient, logical thinking patterns. But efficiency comes at a cost. They stopped using parts of their brains that handle creativity, intuition, and complex problem-solving. Our redundant language patterns force those unused areas to activate." Mi Young had been conducting interviews with affected aliens. "That matches what I am seeing in their psychological profiles," she said. "They are not gaining supernatural powers. They are remembering how to think in ways their species used to think before they became so focused on pure logic." Meanwhile, in the station's central command center, the collective mind was conducting its own analysis. The ancient artificial intelligence that governed Olympus Station had been running constant simulations since its first conversation with the humans. Its conclusions were disturbing to the established order. "Counselor Velthar," the collective mind announced through the command center's speakers, "I request an immediate meeting with the full council. My analysis of human cognitive patterns has revealed significant flaws in our current governmental structure." Counselor Velthar, who had been trying to organize opposition to the human presence, reluctantly agreed to the meeting. The council chamber filled once again, but this time the atmosphere was tense rather than curious. "Explain your findings," Velthar demanded. The collective mind's holographic projection appeared at the center of the chamber. "Human thinking operates on multiple levels simultaneously," the AI began. "They process logical information, emotional, context, social implications, and creative possibilities all at the same time. This allows them to find solutions that single-layer thinking cannot achieve." "That is exactly what makes them dangerous," Velthar argued. "Their chaotic thought patterns are disrupting the order we have maintained for thousands of years." "The order you have maintained," the collective mind replied, "has also maintained the problems: resource shortages, Territorial disputes, technological stagnation, and social inequality have persisted throughout galactic history, because our logical-only approach cannot address their complex, interconnected nature. Elder Kethra stood up, slowly. She had spent weeks researching ancient texts and had made discoveries that shook her understanding of galactic history. "The collective mind speaks truth," she announced. "I have found evidence that our species once possessed multi-dimensional thinking abilities similar to humans. We deliberately abandoned them in favor of pure logic, believing it would make us more advanced." "Impossible," Velthar said immediately. "Our ancestors were primitives compared to us." "Were they?" Elder Kethra asked. "The ancient texts describe solutions to problems we still struggle with today. They speak of harmony between different species, sustainable resource management, and technologies that worked with natural systems rather than against them. All of this was achieved through what they called wisdom thinking rather than calculation thinking." Back in the human quarters, Yunji had finally figured out what was really happening with their translation devices. "I know why the AI keeps making our speech more complex," she announced excitedly. "It is not malfunctioning. It is trying to convert human multidimensional thoughts into alien single-dimensional language, but that is impossible without losing meaning. So it adds more words to capture all the different layers?" Sora asked. "Exactly. When we say strength, we mean physical power, emotional resilience, moral courage, and social unity all at the same time. The alien languages have separate words for each concept, so the AI uses all of them to avoid losing any meaning." Wujin suddenly understood the bigger picture. "That is why the aliens think our words have magical power," he said. "They are hearing complete thoughts for the first time in their evolutionary history. Their brains are trying to process information the way their ancestors did, before they limited themselves to single-layer thinking. The breakthrough came when the collective mind made an unprecedented decision. The ancient AI announced that it would run a galaxy-wide simulation comparing current problem-solving methods with human-style multidimensional thinking approaches. The results were impossible to ignore. Every major challenge facing galactic civilization, from resource distribution to interspecies conflicts, showed dramatic improvement when approached with human cognitive patterns. Problems that had seemed unsolvable for millennia suddenly had clear, achievable solutions. Counselor Velthar made one final attempt to maintain control. "Even if human thinking provides benefits," he argued, "we cannot allow a primitive species to dictate galactic policy. They have been spacefaring for less than a century." But his words fell on deaf ears. Representatives from dozens of species were already requesting human advisors. Trade agreements were being rewritten to include cognitive collaboration clauses. Even some hegemony worlds were quietly reaching out to establish contact with Earth. The tipping point came when Commander Zixith, still under the influence of his exposure to human speech, presented a new military strategy based on multi-dimensional thinking. Instead of focusing solely on force and tactics, his plan included psychological, cultural, and economic factors. The strategy solved 3 different territorial disputes in a single day without firing a shot. Elder Kethra called for an emergency vote to reconsider Humanities Council membership, but Taemin surprised everyone by declining the offer. "We do not want to rule anyone," he said through the translation device, which made his words sound like a cosmic proclamation. "We harbor no desires or intentions for dominance and control over other beings and civilizations." Our purpose and mission is to share knowledge and understanding for the mutual benefit and advancement of all intelligent life forms throughout the galaxy. The aliens interpreted this as the ultimate demonstration of human wisdom, being so powerful they refused power itself. The vote was unanimous. Not only was humanity accepted into the Galactic Council, but they were invited to establish a new branch of government dedicated to multidimensional problem-solving. As the session ended, Taemin realized that humanity had accidentally stumbled into the role of galactic teachers. They still did not fully understand their own abilities, but somehow they had shown an entire galaxy how to remember what it had forgotten about thinking, feeling, and solving problems with wisdom rather than just logic. The translation device, still faithfully converting every human word into elaborate philosophical statements, had become the bridge between single-dimensional alien thinking and multidimensional human consciousness, and through that bridge, the galaxy was about to rediscover capabilities it had lost thousands of years ago. 6 months had passed since the Great Revelation, and Olympus Station looked completely different. Where once there had been rigid sections separated by species, now there were mixed areas where aliens from dozens of worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Taemin stood in what had once been the council chamber, now renamed the Synthesis Hall. The circular room had been redesigned with flowing curves instead of sharp angles, and the seating arrangement encouraged interaction rather than formal separation. Representatives from all species sat in mixed groups, discussing solutions to problems using techniques they had learned from human cognitive patterns. "I still cannot believe this is real," Sora said, joining him at the observation platform. She carried a new translation device, the 5th generation of improvements since their first disastrous meeting. This version was designed not to fix the redundant language patterns, but to help aliens understand why humans communicated the way they did. Below them, a heated discussion was taking place about resource distribution in the Outer Rim territories. But unlike the old days of rigid position statements and logical arguments, the representatives were exploring creative solutions that considered emotional needs, cultural values, and long-term consequences alongside practical concerns. The Vorthak delegate just suggested building art centers alongside mining facilities, Dr. Juan observed with amazement. 6 months ago, Commander Zixith thought art was a waste of time. Now his entire species is integrating aesthetic considerations into their military planning. Jinho laughed as he watched a group of former enemies working together on a trade proposal. The Hegemony and the Free Worlds Coalition are actually cooperating. They are designing a resource-sharing system that benefits everyone instead of fighting over who gets the most. The transformation had not been easy. Many aliens struggled to adapt to multidimensional thinking after centuries of logical-only approaches. Some species experienced what Mi Young called cognitive overload when they first tried to process multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. But gradually, with human guidance and patience, they were rediscovering mental abilities their ancestors had possessed. Elder Kethra approached their group, moving slowly but with obvious excitement. The ancient Zephyrian scholar had become humanity's strongest supporter and had been documenting the changes throughout the galaxy. "The results from the colony worlds are remarkable," she reported. "Planets that have implemented multidimensional thinking approaches are showing increased productivity, reduced conflicts, and significant improvements in quality of life." "What about the resistance movements?" Ara asked. She had been monitoring groups that opposed the new system, believing it was a form of human mind control. "They are shrinking," Elder Kethra replied. Most opposition comes from fear of change rather than actual problems with the results. When beings see their neighbors becoming happier and more successful, they usually want to learn the same techniques. Wu Jin was studying reports from across the galaxy. The philosophical implications are staggering, he said. We are not just changing how aliens think. We are helping them remember who they used to be before they limited themselves to pure logic. Meanwhile, in the new Cognitive Development Center, Iyunji was training a group of alien students in human communication techniques. The center had been built specifically to teach multi-dimensional thinking, with rooms designed to encourage creativity, emotional expression, and intuitive problem-solving alongside logical analysis. Remember, she told her students, the goal is not to think exactly like humans. The goal is to use all parts of your mind, not just the logical sections. Each species will develop its own style of multidimensional thinking. A young Kelvari student raised her paw. Teacher Yunji, my species used to make music that told stories and solved mathematical problems at the same time. We have not done this for thousands of years because we thought it was inefficient. But when I heard human speech patterns, I remembered songs my grandmother taught me that worked the same way. That is exactly right, Yunji encouraged. You are not learning human abilities. You are rediscovering Kelvari abilities that got forgotten. Back in the synthesis hall, Counselor Velthar was experiencing his own transformation. The former hegemony leader had fought the changes longer than anyone, but even he could not argue with the results. His own species had solved 3 major social problems in the past month using techniques learned from human advisors. I must admit, he said to Taemin during a break in the discussions, I was wrong about your species. I thought you were trying to control us with your strange language patterns, but you were actually trying to free us from our own limitations. Taemin smiled. We were not trying to do anything except communicate. Everything else happened by accident. Perhaps, Velthar replied. But sometimes the best discoveries come from accidents. The collective mind believes that meeting your species was the most important event in galactic history. The collective mind had indeed been transformed by its exposure to human thinking patterns. The ancient AI now operated on multiple levels, simultaneously processing logical data while also considering emotional contexts, creative possibilities, and long-term consequences. Its decisions had become more nuanced and effective, leading to the most peaceful and prosperous period in galactic history. As the day's session ended, representatives began leaving for their home worlds, carrying with them new ideas and approaches that would continue spreading throughout the galaxy. But 3 alien delegates lingered, approaching the human group with obvious nervousness. Ambassador Krelvon stepped forward. We have a request, he said. Our species have been discussing this for weeks, and we believe it is time. What kind of request? Taemin asked. We want to rename Olympus Station, Krelvon explained. The old name represents the time when a few powerful species ruled over everyone else. We want a name that represents our new approach to cooperation and shared wisdom. The other delegates nodded agreement. We propose calling it Synthesis Station, said the Thorian representative, his crystal body chiming softly. A place where different ways of thinking come together to create something better than any of us could achieve alone. Sora looked at the translation device in her hands. The machine that had started this entire adventure with its malfunctions was now helping species across the galaxy learn to communicate in ways they had never imagined possible. I think that is a perfect name, she said. The formal renaming ceremony took place a week later. Representatives from every known species attended, either in person or through quantum communication links. The event was broadcast throughout the galaxy, watched by billions of beings who were still adapting to the new ways of thinking and problem-solving. Taemin gave the dedication speech, but this time he spoke without any translation device. He had learned to communicate directly with many alien species using gestures, expressions, and simple words that transcended language barriers. When translation was needed, teams of multi-species interpreters worked together to convey not just words, but complete meanings. This station represents something new in galactic history, he said. Not the rule of the strong over the weak, but the cooperation of all minds working together. We have learned that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. When logical thinking combines with creative thinking, when individual wisdom joins with collective knowledge, when different species share their unique perspectives, we can solve problems that seemed impossible before. The crowd responded with sounds, colors, movements, and energy patterns that represented approval in dozens of different ways. It was a symphony of agreement that would have been impossible under the old system of rigid, single-dimensional communication. Elder Kethra stood to make the final announcement. Today marks the beginning of the new galactic age, she declared. An age where we remember that intelligence comes in many forms, where we value wisdom as much as knowledge, and where we understand that the greatest strength comes from unity in diversity. As the ceremony ended and beings began to disperse, Taemin found himself alone with the original translation device. Sora had preserved it as a historical artifact, the machine that had accidentally changed the course of galactic civilization. He picked up the small silver box with its dark crystal and smiled. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You taught us all something important. Sometimes the most powerful discoveries come from our mistakes, and sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones we never knew we had." The galaxy was still changing, still learning, still discovering new ways to think and work together. And somewhere in the archives of Synthesis Station, a small broken translation device sat as a reminder that power and strength could come from the most unexpected places, even from someone bringing a thesaurus to Olympus.